Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 150 episodes of mead making education, information, and entertainment. More than 100 guests have stopped by the Mead House, professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey, and brewers just like you and me have all visited to share their knowledge. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a keyholder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support, so get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. You can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player, and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House, mead making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Hey, before the cultivation of hops, there were trees, special kinds of trees. Spruce on Tap. They love brewing and they love trees too. Spruce on Tap, a great source for those spruce tips that you've always wanted to try in your brew. Spruce on Tap has a very ethical and environment-friendly harvest program, ensuring that only top-quality spruce tips make it to their freezer. And Spruce on Tap has been providing wild-crafted spruce, juniper, yarrow, and other ingredients for the craft community for over 10 years. Hey, spruceontap.com. And thanks, guys, for supporting the 2020 Iron Bee. Hey, welcome to the Mead House. Thanks for listening to episode number 173. Hey, I was just installing an automatic sprinkler system out in the front yard when Jeff and Ryan showed up. I'm JD Webb, and, well, I'll probably have to lay some carpet in the hallway after they leave. Hey, does anybody know where you can listen to the Mead House? How about on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeart, you know, all the typical places out there. For all our new listeners, hey, check it out at the front page of the website, themeadhouse.com. They're all listed right there. In segment 1, you know, I didn't even write down any kind of an intro for this guy. Off the cuff. I've known him for maybe a year and a half, couple of years maybe. Just shortly after I was introduced to Ash Fishbein, the owner of Sap House Meadery. Evan went to work for Ash out of this jumping from a career. I mean, you talk about jumping from one ship to another, maybe even going in opposite directions. But this cat has done some amazing things at Sap House Meadery. His name is Evan Henderson. He's an avid listener of the show. We're going to talk to him here in just a little bit and just find out what's going through his mind when he's dealing with these projects there at Sap House Meadery and some of the things that he's been working on. And maybe we can get a couple of things that he's got planned for the future as well. So that's in segment 1. Segment 2, you know, it was a while back, and I was cruising around in the messages on Facebook. We get a lot of those, and one caught my eye. It talked about making, of all things, get ready, coffee mead. So now, over the last couple of years, we've joked about our Mead House challenge that happened, almost a couple of years ago now, where we each made our own kind of a rendition of a coffee mead. There's some funny stuff going on ever since. You want to go all the way back to, I think it was episode 16 if you want to catch up. And then periodically from that point forward, you'll hear us talk about the coffee mead program here at the Mead House. So, hey, we've got a guy who made one, and it actually sounds like it came out pretty well. Michael Labonte will join us in segment 2. And then, of course, segment 3, this is Facebook Friends. This is where we try to answer questions from mead makers with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew house. All that and more here at the Mead House. But hey, first, hey, big thanks to all of the Mead House key holders out there who joined. in helping to keep the Meat House podcast free. You too can become, and I'll bet I know Evan's listening. He's probably reading along with me. He's probably got this memorized. You too can become a Meat House key holder and help support the show for as little as $2 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts to send out to you, so get on over to patreon.com, search the Meat House, or just click on the links in the show notes. What are we drinking tonight? I have a fistful, guys. I got to reach down and grab bottles. I've actually got four. Jeff, I think you were the one that had three one night. I'm going to outdo you.
Oh, I had four one night.
Okay. So we're tied. Well, in honor of having Evan from Sap House on the show, I'm drinking Sap House meads. But my wife is a huge fan of Sap House, and she just loves their meat. So I pour her a glass, I get a little sip. The next thing I know, the only thing that's left in the bottom of the bottle is maybe an inch or two. So I'm drinking the last. I don't know. Maybe they call it the dregs of Sap House meads. The one I'm starting out with is Higher Grounds. This is a coffee mead. And it's one of I tell you, there are very few coffee meads that I have had that I actually like. This is absolutely one of them. We'll find out if Evan had anything to do with this. We know we talked to Ash about it. Remember what he said, that little nugget he threw out to us? Different grinds at different times. And then I'm going to drink this 50/50 Twisty. This is a chocolate and vanilla mead. And as I recall, it's chocolate and it's vanilla. It almost tastes like a candy bar. And the third one is hopped blueberry. This is probably one of my favorites out of the whole bunch that came in that one box that we got. Hopped blueberry mead. We'll find out what if Evan had anything to do with this. Excellent stuff. Really, really good. And in my fourth glass, it's a bourbon. And this is a bourbon. Let me get the bottle down here. This is a bourbon. It's Rebel Yell. Okay. And I'm sure you've all seen it on the shelf in the supermarkets and the liquor stores and whatnot. It's an inexpensive bourbon, about $12, 12 to $13. But it's one of those little gems that has some amazing flavors going on. You get the big three, the vanilla, the caramel, the brown sugars going on in there. You get a little bit of that barrel aging and finishes a little bit on the dry side. This is another one, okay, for all you people out there who like to dabble with the bourbon flavored meads and whatnot. This is another one that I would use to flavor and soak a little bit of wood in if you want to age some stuff on wood. Rebel Yell, Kentucky Straight Bourbon. It's 40 proof or 80 proof, 40% alcohol, so it's a mild, smooth. It's sweet, great sweetness up front. That's that corn mash that comes through. Really good stuff. So that's what I'm doing tonight, Jeff. What's in your cup tonight?
Well, tonight I am being moderate as usual and only have two glasses in front of me. The first one, I think you had JD. I want to say last week or the week before. This just has a little piece of masking tape with pantry clean out written on it. I'm sure this is courtesy of Ryan.
Yeah.
There are just a lot of interesting flavors going into this, obviously, because pantry clean out, and God, I'm getting some kind of almost a wininess to it, there's a kind of a fruity character to it, a little bit of yeast character to it. And some sweetness on the back end too. I'm having trouble putting my finger on any one particular flavor, but it's got a pretty decent complexity to it. It's actually a little bit still for something I would expect from wine, but that's not bad either. Yeah, no, I'm almost getting like a raisiny kind of a dried fruit note on the back end too. A lot of flavors going on here. That's really interesting. And in my other glass,
yep,
I have an Adam Bystrom mead. I believe this was also courtesy of Ryan. This is a this is a salty date mead, and it looks like it was made with Tupelo and avocado blossom. And honestly, I feel like the varietal character of the honey comes through even a little bit over the salt and the dates. I definitely get that Tupelo sweetness and some of the avocado on the back end. The dates are there. They're just, there's a lot more honey character coming through for me. The saltiness is really light. It's not even at the level of like a Gose or however you say that beer variety with the sea salt in it. It's just kind of it kind of tones down the sweetness of the honey and the dates together. This is a really interesting one as well. So, a couple very complex meats going on in my palate tonight.
Excellent, very good. And Ryan, I know the Mead House North up there has been working on some different projects. Anything new in your glass tonight?
Yeah, so this is really, really big body on this, almost like milkshake thickness. It's very, you got some sweetness to it. It's also got a little bit of a metallic flavor to it. It's bright pink. And it goes by the name Pepto-Bismol.
Pepto-Bismol.
Quattro is 10 days old now.
Yeah,
that's not her name out there. That's her little nickname here on the show because she's our fourth. It's customary for people to kind of understand the new baby, and they come over and they drop you off a meal or food, something they prepared, and try to help out. Well, my mother-in-law is a wonderful woman, and she's good at a lot of things, but cooking might not be her one of her top talents. Kind of brought us a little dish and kind of got our stomachs a little doing gymnastics here. So taking it easy on with the Pepto tonight. And in my other glass is a Milk of Magnesia stout.
That's quite a cocktail. Milk of Magnesia stout. I haven't had Milk of Magnesia since I was, probably 6 years old. It was like chewing on a piece of chalkboard chalk. I remember that. We're sorry you're kind of out of sorts there a little bit with the tummy, but Ryan doing Pepto-Bismol and Milk of Magnesia. Are they on the rocks at least, or straight up?
I got to usually drink the Pepto right out of the paper bag.
Right.
So all
right. Yeah, could always throw in a little Alka-Seltzer for a cocktail there.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Muddle some Tums.
There you go. Oh, my God. Well.
All right. Well, as JD said, our old friend Evan Henderson of Sap House Meadery is joining us. He's back at the Mead House tonight. They've done some pretty amazing things over at Sap House. They always do, but I think some exciting things even recently here. And welcome back to the show, Evan. And what's in your glass tonight?
Oh, well, thank you very much, guys, for inviting me back. So I've got, in classic Mead House fashion, I got two. So in one, I have our Sap House's Respect Your Elders. It's an elderberry session mead. And then in my other glass, I have a glass of World on a String. It's an herbal tea mead that we make with Blue Eyes tea, which has like notes of apples, hibiscus, blueberries, and cornflower, and it's just a really nice, light, refreshing tea mead that we make with Blue Eyes tea, which is one of my favorite teas. I love having that in the summertime, like a nice cold iced tea with the Blue Eyes.
Well, that sounds pretty
great.
good.
Go ahead, JD.
Well, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'm wondering about the elderberry. How come that wasn't in my box, Evan?
I just canned up the elderberry last week. This is the second batch that we've done. So this is just fairly new. This one went out after our last club. So
Ash is Ash sitting there next to you?
he is not. No.
I was going to give him a hard time and say, "Hey, where the hell's my elderberry, dude?"
I'll see if I could slip something in on the next order.
Hey, hey, I recall a little bit of our last discussion. I didn't even go back and listen to it, but I do remember. Now, I'm going to mess this all up, Evan. You came from a background of something completely not even associated with brewing of any sort. Civil engineering or something of that sort?
Exactly, yeah, civil engineering. I did like highway design and like some site development stuff and a lot of stormwater management design.
We probably picked up a whole bunch of new listeners briefly. Evan, can you tell us how you went from a civil engineer to working in a meadery? How did you? What happened then?
Well, when I graduated from high school, I wanted to be an engineer. I actually wanted to I wanted to be an architectural engineer. And I went to school. I started going to school for that. And then about my second year in, I was told by one of my professors that you could get a second degree in civil engineering with only a couple extra classes. So I did that. And by the time I graduated, I had 2 degrees, architectural and civil engineering. The architectural, which is what I wanted to do, I never got into.
Uh-huh.
I ended up working in civil engineering. I worked for Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and then with a couple other like smaller site development engineers. And I did that for about 10 years, and I was sitting behind a computer all day, and I just wasn't, after about 10 years, I was like, that's enough. So I decided to make a change, and I quit my job. And then I did some traveling. I drove cross country and back. And while I was on my cross country trip, I'm friends with Matt, who's Ash's cousin and partner in the business. And while I was gone, he had posted on, I don't know if it was Facebook or something, that they were looking for a new production guy. And I can't remember where I was. I think it was Colorado or something. And I texted Matt and was like, hey, I'd be interested in this. And he's like, oh, cool. He's like, great. He's like, when can you come? And I was like, well, I'm in Colorado. He's like, well, as soon as you get back in town, give me a call and we'll talk about it. And the rest is history. Once I got back, I sat down with the 2 of them and thought this was a great opportunity. I had no practice in this, but Ash was willing to just kind of teach me what he knew and to guide me. And it's been, I guess it's a little over about 4.5 years now that I've been with them. I absolutely love it.
So I imagine the only thing on the resume you had to give him was, I like beer.
Something like that, yeah.
I tell you, I talk to Ash all the time, and he's got nothing but great things to say about you. I'm drinking 3 of your the Sap House meads. I don't know which ones that you had a hand in: the hot blueberry, the chocolate, and the higher grounds. Did you have your hands on any one of those?
I've made all 3, yes. Well, the hot blueberry maple is one of Ash's original recipes. I think that's one of the first flavors that he did when he started Sap House. Ash and I worked together on the 50/50 Twisty, and what was the third one you said? The
Higher Grounds, the coffee mead,
Higher Grounds. Yes,
which
yes.
is just outstanding. I'm finishing that one off right now. Um, let's talk about the chocolate one here, 50/50 Twisty. This is a chocolate and vanilla mead. What was the process you went through, getting all these flavors? Because that's kind of an issue for some of us in mead making is how much of this and how much of that does it take to get to the result that you're looking for? So, what's the process for you to sit down and start playing around with chocolate and vanilla, and finally coming up with the 50/50 Twisty?
So both of those, the chocolate and the vanilla, are flavors that we've used on different meads separately, completely on their own. We have a chocolate mead and our vanilla bean mead, which is that's one of Ash's original recipes. But the chocolate one I've been making for a couple of years, and we were just talking. We're talking about trying to come up with more like multiple flavor mead and not just like single note, like raspberry, strawberry,
Right.
And I can't remember what brought it up, but I think it was I think we might have had the vanilla and the chocolate there, and we just kind of mixed the two, like in a glass, just kind of eyeballed it, and we're like that. I mean, because chocolate and vanilla are two flavors that just go together really well,
Right.
and we'd never done it, in one single mead. So we just kind of were messing around with that, and we just liked the flavor of it. We're like, let's see if we can try and do this. Like I said, we had just kind of blended it in a glass, but we wanted to recreate that like in one batch. And with that one, I believe I had already made like the vanilla bean, and it was pretty much our vanilla bean recipe, and it was sitting there, and I just racked it over and added some cacao nibs, and just kept adding a little by little until I hit that the flavor, where I liked it, where they were just really nicely balanced and mixed, and that's kind of how that one worked out.
So you just let it sit on some cacao nibs in secondary until you achieved the flavor that you were looking for. Then
exactly, yeah. I just kept adding a little bit more, and until I got the flavor that I liked.
Yeah, because sometimes this is an issue that we face is like how much of this, how much of that, and to get to the results that we're looking for. I've done that so many times, and sometimes I wind up going past the point.
Mm-hmm.
How is it? I mean, is it your? I know that you have that the mead house, the meadery there is pretty much your ball game. Is the final output your project, or I mean, do a lot of people have any say in the outcome, or how does that process work?
I mean, Ash and Matt kind of lead me to kind of do my own thing, and then when I've kind of got it close to where I think I like it, I'll take it to them and I'll give them a sample and have them taste. And every once in a while, they'll be like, this could use a little bit more of this, or this is a little bit too much. We can dial back on that. And I'll get their input. But for the most part, they're really great about letting me kind of do my own thing. But I love to get their input from time to time because.
So for a home mead maker, then Evan, it's pretty important to share with other folks to get their input on it as well. I mean, other people who enjoy drinking mead, friends, relatives, perhaps that you feel might give you an honest, interpretation of the mead that you're giving them. So that's pretty important, I think.
I totally agree. I mean, like I like to have a second opinion on pretty much everything because certain things that I totally like, and then I'll give it to a friend, and they'll be like, that's off. I don't care for that. But then some people just love to like Matt and Ash are great with giving good constructive criticism and to help me dial in dial in my recipes.
We say on the show all the time that we make mead for ourselves to drink, not anybody else. But I still feel it's kind of important to get other people's opinions and thoughts on. I mean, my neighbors are always telling me about the stuff that I brew. And I think several of them are pretty honest. I mean, some of them haven't worked out so good, but others have come out pretty darn good. At least my neighbors seem to enjoy them. A bunch of lushes that they are. But the higher grounds. I talked to Ash about this. We have a couple of interviews in our Patreon for our key holders. And key holders, if you want to go check it out, go over to the Patreon site. The link is on the website, right there on the front page. And check out the 2 interviews that we did with Ash. Ash talks about this coffee mead a little bit. And like I said in the opening here, he let out a pretty good little nugget, Evan. He said the higher grounds was different grinds for different times. And I didn't get him, he wouldn't allude. I know we're, probably talking corporate secrets here, but, and again, I mean, a coffee mead, we all did the experiments here at the Mead House a couple of years ago, a number of shows ago. Some of them were and some of them were not so good. The one that I came up was more like almost like a Kahlua type, which isn't a bad thing, but I wasn't looking for Kahlua, So this higher grounds, you're dealing with coffee. Was that a difficult ingredient to work with?
It wasn't too difficult. Like Ash said, we have different grinds for different times. I know, I'm not giving away too much, but some of it we did for some of it we do whole beans. Some of it's like coarse grind, and then we do like a real fine grind. Mm-hmm. And I find with the finer the grind, the less time. So we'll put the whole beans in there, and they'll be in there for a good amount of time, and then the coarse grind is in there for a little, probably about half the time of the full beans, and then that fine grind is not in there for very long at all. It's I'd say it's only in there for a few hours. Yeah. And prior to starting at Sap House, I used to be a barista at a coffee shop in the next town over. Okay. And that's where I kind of found my love for just like the coffee beans and different roasts, and I was really excited to play with that when I got over to Sap House. So.
And how important was the roast itself? I mean, you're looking at dark roast, medium roast, light roast to extract the best coffee flavor, in your opinion. What sort of a roast are we looking at?
I mean, I feel like that a lot of that is like your own personal opinion if you're going to be making one. Okay. But I tend to we use a coffee roaster here in New Hampshire called Flight. They're over in Bedford, New Hampshire, I believe. And they're just phenomenal roasters. And I just every couple of weeks I'll just go on their webpage and see what they're roasting up, and just look at the different flavor notes for the different types of coffee they've gotten. And I've done 3 or 4 different types of beans so far, and I've got a 4th one that I'm working on right now. I can't remember the name of the coffee that I'm working on now, but it's from Kenya. And it's got these crazy like tangerine notes that I just absolutely once I saw that I fell in love with that and had to order a good amount of that so that I can make a batch with that. But if you're making a coffee mead, if you like light roast, I'd say use what you like.
Yeah, that's that says a lot there. The hop blueberry. Who would, hopping blueberries, who would have thought hopped blueberry? It doesn't, it just doesn't sound like it goes together, but
Mhm.
it certainly goes together on your palate. Uh, how did you come about developing a hopped blueberry mead? Whose idea
Well,
was that? Was that your idea, or was that a community type?
that one is all Ash. That
Oh,
was all his. Before, like I said, that was one of the first meads he had made when he. I think it was maybe the second, maybe the third mead when they opened Sap House. But Ash has a culinary background, and
right.
from what I've been told, that one was a result. Ash used to make a hopped blueberry vinaigrette for a salad that he had made that he would
Oh, wow.
prepare at one of the restaurants, and he had like those flavors. He had messed around with that in a salad dressing, and then he just wanted to move that over into the mead realm. And like I know with the hops, because like a lot of times when you're giving tastings at the meadery, and a lot of people, you say hopped and they get all excited. A lot of people's ears perked up and they're expecting like a super hoppy, super, over the top. And we just like Ash just has these the hops is just a touch to give that light citrus note. It's not over the top. It's not crazy bitter or like super
Right.
hoppy, but you can taste it. It's I'd like to say with that one, it's a very the flavors are all very subtle. They're not like hit you
Yeah.
in the mouth.
Oh
You know,
no,
they're-
yeah, exactly. I mean, when you read the label, it says hopped blueberry. Okay, my immediate thought when I saw that was, oh my, is this like an IPA blueberry mead? I mean, what are we dealing with here? But when I tasted it, I thought, holy cow! Um, it was almost like he used the hops as an herb. Uh, you know,
exactly,
uh,
exactly.
rather than I mean, because hop, we're always thinking about beers and hopped beer. You use hops in beers, and but this had just an amazing taste. It's got some maple syrup added to it, I guess, for a little bit of a. I don't know if that was intended as a sweetener, was it, or were you looking for that maple flavor a little bit?
Um, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Ash about that. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but it just adds a nice. It does add like a real nice sweetness to it. Very very again, it's very subtle. It's not
yeah.
overly sweet. But just that little bit of touch of maple syrup just kind of smooths out the blueberry and the hops.
So in the last 4 years or so, what have you learned, and what sort of projects have you got going now, based on the things that you picked up that you learned there at Sap House? Uh, what's going on with Evan?
Well, how I learn, I just experiment with a lot. Like a lot of I'll just kind of get different ideas for different flavors. A lot of the times I'll use can't remember the name of it. It's like the flavor Bible or something like that.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
And it like I'll look through that for like different flavors that really play well with each other, and I'll kind of go through there to get through some ideas, and then I'll just do a really small, a real small batch and just kind of try it and mess around with it. I'm trying to think, what do I have coming up? There's a couple other new flavors that we've got coming out soon. I know this over the summer we had someone who they're actually I believe they're getting married this Saturday, and they wanted a custom mead for their wedding.
Hmm.
So they had requested they wanted raspberries, cacao, and vanilla bean. So for that, I did like a small batch for they kind of told me what they wanted, what they were going for. They're like they didn't want overly, they wanted subtle flavors, nice and light,
Yeah.
but a little bit sweeter. So I made that to their liking, and in the process of making that, I was like, this was good, but I'd like it a little bit drier. So I went ahead and made like a larger batch that, and we asked them ahead of time if we could kind of tweak the recipe and kind of sell it for ourselves, and they were totally cool with that.
Oh,
And I made like a little bit drier, and it's a raspberry, cacao nibs, and vanilla bean, and it's pretty phenomenal. I really like it. It's really nice, and to me, I'm not into like super sweet meats. I like them on the drier side.
Yeah.
So I just took their idea and did a batch that was drier and just more to my liking. So that's one of the newer ones I've got coming out. And then I know you're into our barrel aged stuff.
That was the next topic I wanted to talk to you about. Anything new coming aboard there?
I've got 2 coming out in the next month. I've got our second batch of our 4 Sheets to the Wind, which is our rum, a sweet traditional wildflower honey aged in a rum barrel. And I believe that one we had in there for, I want to say it's 12 months. I don't know. I don't have my recipes right in front of me.
Okay.
And then another one we have is our Hey Jealousy, which is our wildflower honey aged in a gin barrel. But this is the first one I used. I used the dry mead instead of the sweet mead for this one.
Oh.
Because, I don't know, for me, to me, gin, I like super dry mead, gins.
Yeah.
So I thought that a drier mead would just do really well with the barrel. So that was the first mead that we've done with on the drier side of things. Because a lot of the barrel aged stuff we go with the sweeter mead.
Right.
But that's a dry mead aged in gin barrels, and that one was in there for, I want to say, that might be almost 24. I can't remember. It's maybe not 24. I think it's maybe 18 months or something like that.
I'm almost done. The last box I got had 2 bottles of Power of Love in it. And I got to tell you, Ash, that was just absolutely phenomenal. Okay. Aged in an apple brandy barrel, I think for 2 years.
Yep.
Is 2 years, it's got to be a lot of anticipation there, I would think. Is this thing going to turn out right, or how do you handle that? You got 2 years to wait, and you're probably looking at these barrels stacked up in a room someplace thinking, geez, I hope all this stuff works out. How does that work out?
With the barrels, that's just it's a matter of tasting them every I'd say maybe every quarter. So like every 3 or 4 months, I'll kind of go through and pull a sample from a couple of the barrels and try them and see where they're at. And some of them you taste them once they go in the barrels, even I'd say after like maybe 6 for us, because we're using the large barrels, about 6 months, about minimum what I like to keep them in there for. And then I'll taste them and see where they're at. And sometimes I want that flavor to come in through a little bit more, so I'll let it sit for a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And also, some of the barrels we've used multiple times. I think that we've only used one barrel 3 times so far, and it's the most we've reused a barrel. Yeah. But that third one, I believe that apple brandy one, that was I believe that was the 3rd time we used that barrel, and that's why it was in there for a full 2 years. Each time it takes a little bit longer to kind of extract what flavors are left in that barrel.
Right.
So it's just a matter of tasting. Like I said, every few months I'll pop open a barrel, pull a sample, and see where it's at, and take some notes. And a lot of times I know we've got a Jim Beam barrel that I've got going now. It's been in there for 2 years. And every time we take it out, like, this is phenomenal. And Ash is just like, let's just let it go. Let's let it go. let's lift it a little bit more to that. So
I'm coming out there in June. You going to sneak me a sample?
If it's still around, yeah, we can. I can sneak you a sample.
Or save me a bottle. I'll be in touch. That really sounds. Oh, that sounds good. Oh my God. Well, your barrel projects out there, all the ones that I've had from Sap House have just been outstanding. I think you and Ash have put together probably not probably, no doubt, a world-class barrel aging program. What did it take for you to get to that point? I mean, because you got to know that you're putting out just outstanding product. Okay.
hmm
So, personally for you, I mean, what's that all about for you?
For me, it's just I do I do a lot of go online, do a lot of reading, and just trying to see what other people are doing, just to kind of get a different ideas, a different way of how people do things, and I've grabbed pretty much every book that I could on the mead making process and read them all a couple times through. And like I said, it's a lot of it's just experimenting. You got to try it,
Yeah.
and I'm very fortunate that I have Ash at my disposal here, like to ask like every and all questions, and he's just got so much knowledge. I've realized that I'm very fortunate to have that to have Ash.
Now, have you become a home mead maker at all yet, Evan? Are you doing anything at home?
I haven't done anything at home yet. I live in like a second floor apartment in like an old farmhouse. In the summer, it's super hot. I mean, I could probably make a batch in the wintertime, probably cool enough.
Actually,
But it's
yeah, actually, you can do it in the summertime too.
with the yeah with the
Kavik.
with the Kavik, yeah. I haven't. I hear you guys talking about that all the time, and I'm like, I'd really like to try something with that. We've actually at the meadery we have what we call our hot box. We have like a small, like a walk-in closet where we store all of our honey to keep
Yeah.
it at nice and pourable.
Right.
And that room is typically it's kept around 85 degrees. And
Perfect.
that's where we store the honey. I should try and get my hands on some of that Kavik yeast and
I'm
see if I
telling
can do
you.
a batch in the hot box.
I'm telling you, you're gonna. I mean, it's phenomenal stuff. I mean, this stuff is indestructible. Okay. I have fermented with it at 64 degrees. I fermented it at. I had to wrap blankets on the heaters that I have attached to my two stainless steel fermenters wouldn't go high enough. I had to wrap an electric blanket, or not an heating pad around one of them just to get the temperature up above 100 degrees. And it was, I mean, in 3 days it's like done. All right. And it was just phenomenal. I mean, when yeast, I'm amazed at certain temperatures. When yeast ferments at certain temperatures, there are different flavors that come out.
Yep.
And it's amazing. You have to try that Kavik, Evan. Put a project together, a little something out of the way, stick it in that hot box, and just, you guys see what you think about it. I'm serious.
Yeah,
It's good stuff.
yeah. I'll definitely look into doing a small experiment.
Yeah. Anything, for you in the future? You gonna stay with the mead making thing there?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I love it at Sap House. So I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon. I'm just enjoying my time there and learning and having fun.
Well, I tell you, you guys are making some phenomenal meads over there at Sap House. I mean, certainly a world class act to follow over there. We always enjoy talking to you and Ash as well. Ash has been on the show, numerous times, and of course, we press him a little bit, but he's very free about pumping out a little nugget here and there for our home mead makers, and we all learn from you guys that are doing this professionally. So every time we have you folks on, you just kind of drop a little things here and there, and that's perfect.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'd say it goes the same way for me. I like I know I'm an avid listener to this.
Yep.
I get a lot of great information and ideas from the different from your conversations with all these different people, and even your the where you do your Facebook and your Reddit questions.
yeah,
I find they're extremely useful just to get a different a different view or a different take on things. So
Sure.
I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. That's really good feedback for the show. We appreciate that. Jeff, Ryan's sitting back in his chair. I can see him. I mean, I'm looking through the microphone and I can see him. He's got one glass with Pepto-Bismol and the other one with milk and magnesia in it. And he's taking a sip of each. So
and probably tired to boot with a 10-day-old child in the house too. Yeah,
Quattro.
Man, I think you've covered all of the burning questions I had, and the ones that I thought to ask as far as follow up, like how often are you tasting these barrel meads? Evan kind of jumped right in there and got to my answers before I could ask. Geez, I think the only question is what can I do to get a little bit of this elderberry session in my next box too?
Yeah.
I'll see what I could do for the two of you guys.
Appreciate it, man.
There's, we can go on and on and on, Evan, and talk about this whole barrel thing. That's a real passion of mine because I'm still. I live in an apartment also, and I just don't have room for a 53-gallon barrel. That just isn't going to work, 5-gallon barrels, I'm just not convinced yet. I think 5-gallon barrels are good for bourbon and whiskeys. I don't know that they're all that good for meads.
We've done we'll buy like small 5-gallon casks, not with that had different spirits in them, but just like a unused 5-gallon one, and we a lot of times we'll fill that with our vanilla bean and our sugar maple, and people will order it for like a special event, for a wedding or for like a party.
Yeah.
And it works out really well. With the smaller barrels, it's just a lot shorter time, obviously, because you have the ratio of liquid to surface area is just a lot higher in the smaller barrels. So like with those, like I'd say you're talking weeks. You don't have to go crazy amount of time for that. Yeah, exactly. They're much quicker, but you could have some fun with them. And like I said, we buy unused ones, but I definitely, if I was doing this at home, I could see myself buying some liqueur, some bourbon or some gin, put it in the barrel for a little bit, kind of soak up some of those spirits, and then pour that out and then add the mead to it. It's kind of get what we're doing with the full barrels, but
yeah. Well, look, Evan, thanks for coming aboard tonight. Really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun talking to you, and I look forward. My wife and I are planning a huge trip next June, pretty much the whole month. We're going to North Carolina, first stop, to visit, some really good close friends out there, and then up to Herman, Maine, where my younger sister they just sold her house in Heber City, Utah, and moved all the way over to Maine. So we're going to go up there and have a little housewarming up there for them, and then when we come back, we're stopping in Ossipee, Now, people, come on, listeners, you got to go to Google and just type in Ossipee, New Hampshire. All right, this is. I mean, this town's like 4,000 people. It looks like there's nothing there. Okay, I mean, Sap House is probably the biggest thing there, but it's the coolest place. I'm telling you, go look at some of the history of Ossipee and the surrounding area, and what that town is all about. Dude, that's a town that I want to move to. Just talking to Ash and just doing my own little homework. But we're going to stop there for a few days, Evan, and I hope you'll be there because I would love to shake your hand if the whole COVID thing's calms down. But would love to finally meet you. And
I'll be here, and I look forward to meeting you and having you. I can give you some samples of that Jim Beam one.
Yes, please.
It's still sitting there.
Yeah, if it's still in the barrel, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, again, thanks, Evan. Really appreciate it. Good having you on. Please come back.
No problem. Thank you.
Uh,
Appreciate it.
all right, take care.
Later.
Wow, Evan Henderson. Not much of a how-to or recipe show or anything like that, or interview or whatever. But Evan, he's a big part of that Sap House out there. So, there probably isn't a bottle of mead that you get from Sap House that Evan Henderson hasn't had his hands on. And I know from talking to Ash, numerous times, even offline, Evan is pretty much in charge of that meadery. A civil engineer to a mead maker. you know, who does that? But anyway,
Evan does that.
yeah, Evan does that. Get tired of one career and start a new one that you're not even familiar with. Like I said, the best thing you probably put on your resume is, gee, I like beer. So, but good stuff, Evan. Again, thank you for being with us tonight. All right, segment 2, guys. Again, we get a lot of messages on Facebook from different listeners, pretty much all the time, and one of them really caught my eye. And this is a while back. In fact, I don't even have a date on it, and I apologize to Michael for not getting back sooner, but. I kept going back to this thing, and he was talking about, of all things, a coffee mead. Now I know Michael has listened to the show, so he's probably very familiar with the whole coffee thing here at the Mead House. We won't go into any more detail about it. You just got to do your own research on that here at the Mead House. But a very very it looked like it's really came out good, and we want to ask Michael about that. And of course, he must have been thinking about me, because later on in his message, he starts talking about this vanilla bourbon, maple vanilla bourbon mead. Now that, holy crap, I got to have some of that. So we're going to talk to Michael about that. Michael Abonte is with us right now. Michael, welcome to the Mead House podcast.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, excellent. And typically when we have a guest on the show, we like to ask them what they're drinking. So what is in your cup tonight?
Well, in traditional Mead House fashion, I'm double fisting tonight. I've got a Orange Blossom Traditional from a local Connecticut meadery, Nordic Moon. And on the other side, coincidentally, I've got the Maple Vanilla Bourbon.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to press you on that one here in a little bit. Well, again, welcome to the show. Ryan and Jeff are standing by. Ryan's a little. You know what Ryan's drinking? He's drinking.
What's that?
He's drinking Pepto-Bismol and milk of magnesia.
Oh,
yeah. So Ryan's a little under the weather tonight, but I'm here. He'll chime in here in a little bit. Jeff, on the other hand. He is wide awake and with it, and right here with us. So, wanted to start out with this coffee mead, Michael. A while back in the Facebook deal there, you had put up that you had made this cold brew coffee mead with vanilla, aged on French oak, and I thought, holy cow, what a combination! So I guess first question, how did it turn out?
it actually turned out pretty good. It was one of those ones that needed, a couple months age at least. But I think that the French oak and it was actually a Madagascar vanilla bean. It really mellowed the coffee out, and it had a pretty good flavor to it. I liked it. I was happy with it.
Why did you choose French oak to oak with? Any particular reason?
I mean, to be honest, it was just kind of an experiment one.
Okay. Well,
Figured I'd give it a shot.
Sounds like the experiment worked.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it worked out pretty well. Definitely gave it a nice. It really complemented the vanilla very well.
Now, this is the recipe, I take it, that you put up. Was it 3.5 pounds of orange blossom honey, 64 ounces of cold brew coffee, and 32 ounces of water. So you had quite a bit of coffee in there. The cold
Yeah,
brew?
yeah, I did. That recipe is actually it's right out of my book. I have a book on Amazon. It's The Lost Art, a comprehensive guide for beginner mead brewers. But it's a really good recipe. It was a lot of coffee, and I know some people try to go a little bit lighter on the coffee, but I felt like with the French oak and the vanilla, it kind of mellowed the coffee out a little bit, and it worked out really well.
One of the things that of course, I mean, we tried different ways of using coffee, but one of the things that I didn't like about the coffee meads that I was working with when I was making mine was the fact that there was this insurmountable bitterness that was coming from the coffee. And I had tried cold brew, I had tried the hot brew, I had tried just coffee beans and whatnot. Were you aware of that, or did you encounter any of that at all, or do you feel that the cold brew coffee kind of eliminated a lot? A lot of that bitterness comes out of the heat.
Yeah. Well, the cold brew is known for being a little bit less bitter than the hot coffee, so that's why I chose to go with that. I think it also depends on the specific type of coffee you use. I got mine from like a health food store that actually just makes it there.
Okay. Light roast, dark roast.
To be honest, I'm not sure. I want to say that it was a medium roast.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just from whatever, because the place specializes in coffee, so I just figured I'd get it there. But I think that the real key was the vanilla and the French oak to minimalize it, kind of like mellowed out any bitterness that it would have had, and age too.
And you said it took a little bit of time to age. So I mean, I'm sure trying to get that French oak to work in there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you really got my attention now. The Lost Art. How long have you been making mead?
Well, I've been brewing about 7 years now.
7 years. Perfect.
All yeah.
Right. Okay.
I started when I was 21. Typical story. My brother got me a Mr. Bear kit.
Yeah.
My beer wasn't that good though, so yeah. Next thing you know, the mead ended up taking off.
Yeah. Jeff, chime in, bud.
Yeah, I was just curious here, looking through the recipe. You mentioned using 3.5 pounds of orange blossom honey. How did you settle on orange blossom for a coffee mead as opposed to wildflower, clover, something more basic there? And do you feel like that orange blossom comes through in the final product?
Yeah, I would say that it does. I mean, realistically, you could probably substitute it with a handful of different honeys, like a nice meadow foam to give that like marshmallowy type of thing. Ooh, yeah. Could have been used. I thought the orange was a nice touch just because, I don't know, I feel like orange kind of complements honey, or not honey, coffee a little bit. But that's just kind of what I went with.
Okay.
Yeah, good enough. Ryan, you awake?
Yeah, I'm awake. Welcome to the show, and thanks for taking a little time with us, Michael. Yeah, what else are you working on? What's either have you got working on, or what's next on your plans to make?
I just bottled a Bordeaux inspired pie mint. I did that on French oak also.
Wow.
And I included a little vanilla bean in that too.
Oh my.
Yeah, I feel like it really makes the Merlot pop a little bit more. Right now I'm also doing a mango that I'm gonna hop with Citra hops, and I'm putting that in the keg. I've got a lot of little projects going on.
Well, yeah, both of those sound absolutely amazing. Let's talk a little bit about this bourbon thing. You know me and bourbon. I love a
Yes,
good bourbon.
I do.
And
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I've got a huge collection of bourbons here. That's actually, I don't even have shelf space left for all my bourbons. I've had to move things around just to make space for my bourbons. I keep adding to the collection, but I do it for a reason. I talked about one at the top of the show that I'm drinking here tonight, Old Yeller, and I go in search of these bourbons because I'm looking for specific flavors that would complement a mead. Because not all bourbons are made alike, and not all bourbons I feel are suited for making mead with. And so that's most of my mission, and of course it's led me to all different kinds of bourbons. Just I don't know, probably 45. I think I'm up to 40, 44, 45 labels now. Some good, some bad. I think people make a big mistake. They think that by spending a lot of money on an expensive bourbon, they're going to get something that tastes really good. That's not always the case. This Old Yeller is awesome stuff. It's $12. I paid $12 for it. So
yeah, that's a good deal.
Your bourbon, your maple vanilla bourbon mead. How did you arrive at that combination?
Well, we actually did it once before, me and my brother, and it came out really good. It was a big hit, but I thought I could improve on it a little bit this time around. So I made a few alterations. It was a pretty simple recipe. I mean, we add the oak for the bourbon, but what we do is we soak the oak in the bourbon,
right?
And we also fortify with the bourbon.
Yeah.
So you really get that bourbony taste. We use Maker's Mark.
That's good. Excellent choice,
I feel like it's really about, 'cause like you're going to be tasting whatever whiskey you use. So you can't just use any old, like some cheaper whiskeys are good, but like others, like Jim Beam, I'm not a huge fan on.
Right.
Things like that. But, we originally, we wanted to try our hand at an Asserglen, I believe it's pronounced.
Yeah, Asserglen.
Yeah, and we used Canadian maple syrup, but this time I wanted to go with because a friend of mine actually owns a maple farm, so I was able to get some local maple syrup, which worked out pretty well.
How are you using the maple syrup? Because a lot of experienced mead makers know that the sugar in maple syrup is like. I mean, even before the yeast start eating the honey, they're like, "Holy crap, maple syrup! Let's eat that first," And you're not left with a whole lot,
Yeah.
So how are you getting that maple-like flavor incorporated into this bourbon vanilla mead?
So I add the maple during primary and secondary. I add maybe in a 6.5 gallons. I believe I'd have to look at my notes, but I believe it was like 2 pints. And then I stabilized and I back sweetened with the maple syrup also.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's. I think that's the best way to incorporate a maple-like flavor.
It's really the only way that you're going to get any of that maple or sweetness from it.
Yeah. Have you participated in the Iron B at all?
No, I haven't. I do have. Oh, go on.
Well, I was just going to say fenugreek was one of the secret ingredients. Jeff, that was the first time around, 2019, correct?
That's right.
And that I have never used it, but it's a maple-like flavor, as I understand it.
Yeah. I watched that episode that you guys had. That was a pretty interesting one. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. But you were going to say something. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you were just asking about the Iron B one. And I know there is a local one to Connecticut, a local competition coming up that I was thinking about participating in, but it's called the Charter Oak. But there's no there's no official date for it just yet this year,
Um,
as far as I know, at least.
I'm going to throw the mic over to Jeff. Jeff, tell Michael why he should participate in his competitions.
I will say there are two reasons you should participate in this one. One specific to any competition, one specific to this one in particular, because the major reason anyone should get into competitions is just getting an experienced mead maker with some objective feedback to taste your mead, tell you what you're doing right, tell you what you can improve on. I would highly recommend entering 2 or 3. Put the same mead in 2 or 3 because, I like to think I have a really refined palate, but I know there are things that I miss and there are things that I catch that another mead maker might miss or catch themselves. So it's a really good idea to have 2 or 3 different people at 2 or 3 different times tasting it before you start making any definitive changes to your recipes. But it is an invaluable resource to have somebody that has no skin in the game as far as like JD and his neighbors. If they start giving him crap about his meads, well, he might not give them more mead.
I just cut him off. Yeah, I just close the door and cut him off. Tell him bar's closed.
And the reason I got into it in the first place was, I had been giving mead to friends and family, and they were always, oh yeah, this is really good, this is really good, and I had a few instances where I had an okay mead that's like, okay, well, I got a bottle of this, oh, this is really good too. It's like, well, no, it's not that great, and thank you, but no. So I knew I needed some objective opinions on this, and that seemed like a great opportunity to do so. As far as your local competition, one of the things I will say objectively, the local competitions, the smaller competitions are really great because there tend to be less entries, so your judges have more time to give you that objective feedback and to go into the small granular detail that I look for when I enter a mead. For 2, a lot of these are basically a fundraising opportunity for a lot of the homebrew clubs near you, so it's nice to be able to support them in that way as well.
Where do you live, Michael?
I live in Connecticut.
Connecticut. Where? I don't know where in Connecticut. Anywhere near the coast?
I'm on the west side of Connecticut, so I'm closer to New York, northern. So I'm like New York, Massachusetts.
Okay. I don't know where our stops are going to be. I know we're staying somewhere near New York on the way up to Herman, Maine next June. We're planning a huge trip. And I tell you, offline, let me get your phone. Well, I do have your phone. What am I talking about? And I got your email address too, I think. So let's do this. I'll send you some information. I might even give you a call. And when I know better where our stops are going to take place, maybe we can get close enough where we can actually meet up.
That would be awesome.
Meet up. And meet each other and, maybe get a couple of pictures and maybe a brief interview or something for the show. So, but hey, thanks for joining us tonight. And it's a lot of fun to, touch base with our home mead makers, our listeners out there that are doing things. I dig this coffee mead that you're doing. I mean, it looks and sounds great. I'd be interested in trying to duplicate that here in my house. I might give it a try in a little gallon jug. And then the bourbon thing, like I said, I'm always after a good bourbon to incorporate into a good mead. I've got one going now that my wife keeps kicking my ass that she keeps asking me, when are we going to bottle this? When are we going to bottle it? I mean, she loves it, and she's, tired of getting a dipper and getting a glass out of the dipper out of the keg. So we got to get that one bottled up. But I tell you, if you're a bourbon lover, another one I'm going to leave you with here. Do you know Willet?
No, I don't believe I've had Willet.
Okay. Can on the pricey side a little bit, but it's well worth the price. Okay. Get yourself a bottle of Willet. It's going to run about 45 to 48 for a 750. I don't know the East Coast prices that well, but if you can find it out there, grab a bottle. I think you're going to love it.
I'll definitely have to keep my eyes peeled.
That's one. It has all. The three things that I look for, Michael, in a bourbon or any whiskey that I want to incorporate into mead. Three things I'm looking for. I'm looking for the barrel flavor, that barrel char that is so. It almost appears on the back of the palate. Sometimes it'll come on the front of the palate past the sweetness. But I'm looking for that. I'm also looking for the vanillin or the vanilla flavors. And then finally, I'm looking for all that brown sugar caramel type flavors that are so common. Those are what I call the big three with a bourbon. I'm looking for all three of those, okay, before I even consider aging any wood or using it in a mead. But try that Willet. Get your hands on that. I think you're going to love it. And then let me know what you think about it. But
I
hey,
definitely will. Thank you.
thanks for joining us here on the show, Michael. And best of luck all your mead making.
Thank you for having me on.
Wish I could be there to try to taste some of this stuff, but it sounds like you're on the right track. And
Yeah, I'll have to get you some.
Okay. All right, buddy. Take care.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Bye bye. Michael Labonte, avid listener of the Mead House here, doing his own thing. Ryan, he's got that coffee thing going. What's your thoughts? That was for Ryan.
Well, I'm always interested in somebody taking on the challenge and seeing what they can do. So if it works for him and he likes it, great. I think that it's one of those things that people just take now as a challenge, kind of like watermelon mead. Somebody once said you couldn't make a watermelon mead, or you couldn't do a watermelon mead very well, and they a bunch of people ended up trying it out, and I've heard some are more successful than others, and some are pretty good. So I kind of think it's like that. People have heard us talk about coffee meads and some of the challenges we've had, and and now a bunch of people say, well, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to see what I can do out of this. And yeah, hopefully there's some good ones that people are making.
There you go. All right. Hey, well, let's get on a few Facebook friends here and Facebook Reddit friends. I got to come up with a new name of that. I guess, I don't know. How do you put the two together? Red Book friends? Face It friends? I don't know. All right, we'll have to think about that one. But anyway, hey, this is the part of the show where we try to answer questions based on no formal expertise other than what we three have experienced in our own brew house. Of course, you're talking about three different levels of expertise there, I guess. Jeff, this one's from Nick Swan on Micro Meads and Brewers, Bentonite, Sparkleoid, or nothing. So my first batch of mead ever is almost ready. Wife and I took a class on making it a while back and was taught to use bentonite. Today is the day we added a crushed Camden tablet and also mixed up the bentonite to clear. I can honestly say after mixing that clay up, I feel like I shouldn't have added it. The smell is exactly like one of our local clay banked creeks. I cannot help to think that will impart the taste in our meat. I know the side effects of people sensitive to drinks with it and also sparkleoid. I wonder who really uses this stuff instead of just racking more. I appreciate all the insight. Well, let me say this about the bentonite, okay? The bentonite, and I'm a firm believer in this, I will never put bentonite in secondary, ever. Okay, I'll put it in the fermentation first. Okay, I believe that's where it helps the most. Okay, and it's just a simple thing. What are the prescribed amount of bentonite? Usually it's a couple tablespoons in the bottom of your fermenter, along with some really hot water. and just stir it up until it dissolves, and then immediately start adding your water, and get that bentonite well incorporated. Because what happens with that hot water, it will turn to clay on the bottom of your fermenter if you don't keep it moving. So that's my point on the whole bentonite thing. Jeff, I know you got a whole thing about, you've done you've used different products.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
Well, of all of these products I've used, I think Sparkloid is the only one that I've not. My local brew store, the one that I worked at for a year and a half or so, we just don't carry it there. So I've never really had an opportunity to try it. I've heard really good things about it, but it's never been in my wheelhouse. When it comes to bentonite, I can tell you why it smells like a clay bank when you mix it with water. Because fun fact, bentonite is also the primary ingredient in clay cat litter. That's 99% of it. There's probably some perfumes and some clumping agents and stuff like that in there to help make kitties' waste a little more not nasty for your home, but
yeah.
That's what it is. I'm not suggesting anybody go out to Walmart and buy a big bag of cat litter to put in their mead, but this is a common region. I don't like using bentonite in secondary for kind of that same reason. I don't know that it's all that effective from what I've used it with. I don't like the slurry and trying to get that incorporated into the mead. It works, but I feel like there are more effective agents. I have tried bentonite in primary, and man, I do like that. It something about having it in there for the actual fermentation, especially when you got fruit or junk in there that is potentially like just hanging out and contributing more haze and crud into the meat itself. I feel like that's a really useful ingredient to add. For me, for my binding purposes, super clear. Super clear KC or dual fine, I think is what they're calling it now. It's the same chitosan and Kiesel salt combination, and man, it just works. You give the Kiesel salt about 12 hours, and the chitosan maybe 2 days, and it comes out real nice and clear. So that's my go-to every time, and it's like $3 for a 5 to 6 gallon batch dose size. So we're good stuff.
Yeah, I think the whole bentonite thing comes out of the winemaking industry, the home winemaking. Usually, you buy these kits, and one of the first things you do is put the bentonite in the fermenter. And I think that's probably where a lot of that comes from.
Along with like a half a cup of boiling water, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that. Yeah, and but I have found out using it that you got to keep that stuff moving and get the water in the fermenter like right now. Otherwise, that crap will sit on the bottom and cake up. Little nugget from JD. Years ago, I used to be a roughneck in Colorado and drilling for oil, and bentonite was one of the chemicals that we used to lubricate the hole. And you get that stuff in the right consistency, and it's like snot. I mean, it's just, it is just, it's crappy stuff, I'm telling you. And, but we used to dump, I don't know, thousands of pounds of that stuff into the hole as a lubricant, and to keep the pipe from, getting hot and sticking to the side of the hole that we were drilling. But, of course, we're talking about thousands of feet deep. But so that was my experience. That was my first experience with bentonite. And it's the same stuff. Believe me, it is exactly the same stuff. It's just clay. Let's see what time. We got time for a couple more here. From Alan. What is that, Jeff? Rado Cervic on micromeads.
Let's see. Sorry, Radoshevich, I believe. I could be wrong. I believe he's from Serbia, and so I'm guessing at how these diacritics are pronounced, but I believe it's Radoshevich.
All right. He's asking about activated charcoal for off flavors. I've not heard of that, so I have no idea.
Yeah, no, active charcoal it's one of those things that you see a lot in water purification systems and things like that.
Yeah.
It seems to me that you could probably use something like that to get rid of off flavors, but I think the problem is that it's such an efficient filtration medium in general that you would probably also lose some good flavors. So I would be real cautious about trying that, honestly.
I use activated charcoal in my aquariums. We've got one tank that's a quarantine tank, and it's got fish in it and everything, and very few plants, and just gravel on the bottom, no dirt or anything like that. And we'll put sick fish in there and medicate the tank. And I use when we're done with that, I use a activated charcoal filter in the filter to take that medication out. It removes that medication out of the tank. So so you're talking about removing flavors. Gosh, if it's removing those those particles of medication, some are liquid, some are powder form. But of course, the powdered form they all dissolve anyway. But it takes that medication out of the tank. So I can't imagine that it's not taking flavors out of your meat as well.
It seems like risky business to get some of those off flavors out. I think it's probably more worthwhile just to keep your fermentation management good in the first place and minimize those up front.
Ryan, you got any thoughts on activated charcoal as some kind of a filtering process for mead, or any experience with it at all?
No, I remember maybe a couple of years ago it was a big fad, and you'd see it all over, like activated charcoal toothpaste and activated charcoal deodorant and that kind of a thing. And so, I think the fad kind of quickly went away because I didn't kind of see it quite as much, just kind of flash in the pan. But I've never played with activated charcoal. My thought would tend to go along the lines of what you guys are saying, that if you did have a charcoal filter of some sort, you would be stripping away quite a bit of potentially the delicate flavors and aromas that are coming out of that. A lot of whiskeys or other alcohols, will go through like a charcoal filter.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are much stronger, much higher proof,
right?
Much less delicate, or harder to damage. So,
well, and typically that's that's usually with whiskey. That's usually the point before it goes into the barrel, and the barrel is giving that whiskey 90% of its flavor. Okay, other than what might be in the mash bill, that's one thing. But there's a crap load of flavors that come out of the barrel. So, and that charcoal filtering happens before it goes in the barrel. So.
Right. Yeah. It's when it's coming out as basically at that point a clear spirit, and then it goes in and gets the color and the flavor. So, yeah, to your point, JD. It's even done before that. So, yeah. I mean, if you want to give it a shot and report back to us, we'll be happy to read your report.
Yeah.
But not necessarily something I think I'd recommend, even though I haven't tried it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on, guys. This one comes from Jason Randalls on Micro Meads and Brewers. Cashews and cacao. Dude, I love cashews. I have a little jar of cashew butter here that I snack on when I'm sitting at my desk and after watching a movie or whatever. And I just get a spoon and that little jar of cashew butter here. And anyway, so we won't talk anymore. But I mean, if my doctor hears about that, he's going to freak out. But anyway, so yeah, cashews and cacao chocolate. Been rolling it around in my head lately. Is it a thing? Can it be? Should it be? Well, that's kind of all up to you. How much cacao do you usually add per gallon? Again, that's probably going to be up to you. Nuts. Is there any way to use regular milk chocolate for a smoother taste? No. I've never used cacao or nuts. Now I'm thinking about brewing some chocolate nuts. There's a joke in there somewhere. Don't put chocolate on your nuts. So I had to get that out there. So, definitely do not use milk chocolate, Jeff, in your mead. Don't do it. Chocolate's got a ton of fat in it, especially milk chocolate. The chocolate flavor is going to come from roasting those cacao beans. And again, it's like roasting coffee. How much you roast those beans will determine the kind of chocolate. You want a dark chocolate type flavor, put a little darker roast on the beans. You want a light Hershey's milk chocolate kind of flavor, then roast them lightly. But don't use like Hershey's candy bars in your meat. Don't do that. Do not. The nuts, hey, I've heard of peanuts. I've seen almonds a lot. Jeff, I don't know why you couldn't use cashews.
Yeah, no, I think realistically the biggest issue I would see with using cashews is that it's a more delicate flavor than a lot of other nuts, and so you might need to use quite a bit of cashew to get the flavor that you're looking for, unless I don't know if amaretti even has a cashew flavor. I suppose they should, but I don't know if they do. So, yeah, no, I think as far as the mix goes, you might need to use more cashew than you would another nut. But God, I mean, I think everybody has had Nutella, which is just hazelnuts and chocolate, and peanut butter and chocolate is amazing. So, I eat one of the stores that I go to has those little, like, at least before COVID, they had those the bulk bag kind of things, and they have like dark chocolate covered almonds and dark chocolate covered almonds with cayenne pepper dusted on them or something like that. Yeah, nuts and chocolate seem to go together. I don't know that I've had chocolate covered cashews, but it seems like it would be a thing. So it's definitely worth a try, and it's just really, to my mind, an exercise in getting those ratios right.
Well, I wonder why that is. I've had chocolate, almonds. I mean, the whole nut thing kind of runs the gamut when it comes to chocolate covered this, chocolate covered that in nuts. But I have never seen chocolate covered cashews. Why is that, Brian?
I have.
Have you?
Sure.
I've never seen them in candy stores or anywhere.
Yeah, chocolate cashews are great.
Okay.
So, and you can make your own too. You can make like a little Rocky Road candy, and use cashews. It's delicious. So a couple things there. Number one, the milk chocolate question. Break down why you like the milk chocolate, and you can impart those qualities. So you can use the cocoa nibs in there, and you can add some lactose, and you can add a vanilla bean, and you can come pretty close to a milk chocolate without having to put in a Hershey's bar, which would be pretty messy, and the fat would be troublesome, and that kind of a thing. So I think you can break that down a little bit, just add and kind of create your own milk chocolate esque flavor there. On the cashew side, you can use nuts. There's two ways that are typically best to use nuts. The first way is boiling them. So you would boil the nuts, and then you would discard the nut and have the water, and then you can separate the fat, skim off the fat, and use that water that's now got that flavor underneath it, and there's some successful things that have been done there. The second way is using essentially the defatted, dehydrated powder. So, like PB2 is a common brand. PB, for peanut butter. So the PB2 powder, it can be used in that. Now, if you're doing the boil method, I've talked to multiple people that have done multiple batches with this, and they say that don't use expensive nuts. If you're doing cashews or, think of, I don't know about macadamias or pistachios or things like that. But essentially, if you're doing almonds or cashews or things like that, what I've heard from the folks that have done this is they say it has very little difference in flavor from peanuts. So just use peanuts. They're a lot cheaper. You want to use the non-salted, right? Non-salted peanuts, but you want to, it's cheaper and you're not going to get that different of a flavor. I mean, if you use, you could use $40 in cashews, whatever, for 10 pounds of it or something, or 5 pounds. I don't know how much cashews are where you are, but I think I bought a large jar of cashews here for, I don't know, $15 or something. And you could easily use more than that in a batch. So anyway, from what I've heard from folks is that the boil method, just use peanuts and you'll still get that flavor that you're kind of looking for. Mm-hmm. Or the PB2 powder, and you can skip the step of having to boil and skim and doing that. But yeah, I think that's a great idea, a great thing, so somehow get that flavor, whether you're going to boil and skim or add the PB2 powder, and then add your cocoa nibs, vanilla bean, some lactose, and then, whatever kind of honey you think is going to go well with that. And I think you'd have something really nice, kind of like a chocolate nut mead, which I'd try a bottle of. So,
yeah.
Just, if we're not home, leave it on the porch, and we'll go from there. So yeah, that's I think that's all of my thoughts on that one. But I'm glad I was reading through these earlier, and I'm glad that we got to that one.
Yeah, good deal. Well, hey, we're going to drop it right there, shut the mics down, and lock it up. But hey, thanks for listening, and special thanks to Evan Henderson from Sap House Meadery. Go check them out, saphousemeadery.com. I'll throw a plug in there for them. And home mead maker Michael Abonti. I want to have him back on the show again. And thanks, guys, both of you, for hanging out with us in this episode. And hey, don't forget, let us know what you're brewing, just like Michael Abonti did. Email us, info@themeadhouse.com, or just do the Facebook message deal. That's how Michael got a hold of us. We got the Twitter thing going, too, at the Mead House. So in the meantime, hey, happy mead making. That's it for this episode. Hey, Ryan, if you can get up, crawl up out of that chair, shut the lights off, will you, please? And Jeff slammed the door shut and bar locked up tight and everything else. Hey, we'll be back next week with episode number. Can you believe we've done 174 episodes next week? 174. By the time we end this, okay, now look, we've got 2 more shows to go, I believe, before we go on hiatus, our 2-week break. We'll get 175 in there. Can you believe 175 shows of the Mead House? I mean, that's like,
wow.
I mean, how long have we been doing this? 3 years?
4 years?
4 years?
Yeah.
My God. All right, that's it. Hey, here at the Mead House. We'll see you next week. We're gone.